All right, I think it is showtime. All
Sure
right.
is.
Yes. So right off the bat, I am Christopher Johnson. I'm a senior academic mentor, and I've been with ESM for just over 3 years now. Just had my work anniversary a couple months ago. And I am here with my favorite, the other CJ of ESM.
Hello, I am the other CJ, Carrie Jorgenson, and I am a senior college coach here at ESM. I'm on the newer side, gone through one admission cycle with ESM, but my background is in high school counseling and also college admissions. We're very excited to have you with us here today to talk about personal statements.
One of my favorite topics, by the way, my favorite topics. So getting right into it, actually. Students always ask, like, where do I start? When do I start? If you are a junior at this moment in time, my condolences to you, because right now that means you are doing AP exams. You are in the midst of finals. You are probably the most stressed you've ever been, right? So when you're thinking of summer and you see that finish line, you're just like, I don't want to think of anything else besides relaxing. So yes, my condolences to you, but I'm here to tell you there's one thing you should be thinking about. And you saw the title, your personal statement, because the last thing you want to do is push it off to the side. And unfortunately the fall will be here before you know it. And if you haven't started on it while you're taking classes, it's not going to set you up well in terms of actually enjoying the process. So where do you start? You actually start planning in advance, planning during your summer. Doesn't mean you have to full blown get it all the way done, but you need to have an organization plan. You need to kind of have a nice little, I encourage you to do like a little outline about where you want to hit and put some milestones and benchmarks about when you want to get things done. That way, when you actually enter the fall, if it's not already done, you already have your topic at hand and you kind of already know what you want to talk about. So that's where you start. And we encourage you to start as early as possible. And we will, dive into that a little bit more in depth down the road in terms of what those deadlines will look like. But yes, that's where you should start.
Absolutely. And I think just to piggyback off what Chris is saying, so often it's easy to procrastinate. We all know that, teenagers tend to submit homework assignments at 11 p.m. when they're due at midnight. This is not something to wait on. We really want you to take enough time to produce a product that you're excited about. So starting early will allow for that.
Absolutely. This is supposed to be a fun time for you. So you don't want to look like this guy.
Exactly. As much as we all love Jeff Bridges, we don't want to be this guy where we're just staring at a blank piece of paper. Absolutely. Just, I don't even know how to describe what's going on with his face, but clearly overwhelmed. And by starting early, you can take some of the stress out of the process. So some of you might be wondering, what is this personal statement? So let me kind of back up and explain that if most of you will be applying to colleges on a platform called the Common Application. There's about, I think, over 1,000 colleges that are part of the Common Application. And each of those colleges ask that students submit one of 7 prompts. And so there's 7 different prompts through the Common App, and it's up to 650 words that you're responsible for writing to answer one of those 7 prompts. And we just got confirmation the prompts aren't changing. So you can Google right now, Common Application 2022 to 2023 prompts, and you'll find the 7 different questions. And so the personal statement, when we refer to that, that is for the Common Application. You can use the personal statement does apply to other application platforms, but most commonly it is for the Common App. And a lot of times when we have students write their Common Application personal statement, it can also be applied to other platforms for other colleges.
Exactly. Okay, so this is like obviously my favorite part. You would think when you ask, and I've been doing this for a long time. Yes, I'm for 3, but I've been a tutor for much longer. Every time I ask a student to write about themselves, that slide we just came from, that is the look they give me, and they have no idea where to go. It's actually amazing and sad at the same time. And I think a lot of that has to do with kind of the way our schooling system is set up right now. If you're a junior right now, you're probably in research paper mode, right? You're probably in that structural 5-paragraph essay mode, and that's what you're used to writing. There's unfortunately not a lot of curriculum that's designed to be like, let's focus on the personal narrative. And that's why students definitely struggle with writing about themselves. And you also hear all the time, at least I do personally, like, oh, I'm not that interesting. And you actually are. So one thing I encourage, brainstorm the qualities you love about yourself first. No, don't, we always try to work backwards in the sense like, man, I need to find a story that's going to be interesting, that's going to sell me to these colleges. Don't think about that. Just think about the qualities that you want to have shine through the personal statement, and then kind of build that story will come organically. So like, I don't want you to think about that at this moment. So not only brainstorm the qualities you love about yourself, but involve your friends, ask your friends, interview your friends and your family. Like, hey, what do you like about me? You don't have to ask it like a super conceited way. You have fun with it, but involve them in the process. Are you resilient? As you can see here, are you resilient, adaptable, compassionate? What would other people say about you? And once you have those qualities, one thing I love my students to do, just do like a nice little free write. I call it freestyle writing. I do it all the time. My mind is cluttered. I have writer's block. It doesn't even have to have a purpose to it, right? Just write whatever comes to mind. And then sometimes you can unlock a story that you're just like, that resonates with you personally. You're like, wow, that could be something that I could write about for my personal statement. It doesn't even have to be some kind of cliche topic or cliche thing, right? Big event. And that's where a lot of students run into trouble. Like, I have to, it's almost like, when you exaggerate on a resume or you try to fluff it up, right, about what you did and try to get too detailed and over the top. It could be something very simple. You want to highlight not only your qualities, but something that's actually important to you, so that your passion rings, through the actual personal statement. And you'll be surprised what stories students come up with. And it's not what you think.
Not at all. And sometimes the more mundane a story, the better the essay, because those qualities really come out, and it shows a really genuine side of a student that you wouldn't necessarily see if you're creating this large kind of like fabricated sub story, for instance, or something that's a little bit more flowery.
Exactly. I'm trying to think if I had I'm trying to remember what my personal statement was on. It was something bizarre, let me tell you right now, which is why I love working with students. Like, I'm pretty sure I wrote about Tupac, Jessica Alba, and John Wooden. I don't know how, but I used them as symbols about like to show different sides of my personality. And it was a weird, wacky essay. I had like my teachers read it, and they're just like, this is the weirdest essay I've ever read, but it is so you. And that's the key. It was me. And it's not going to be like any other essay another student's going to write. It needs to be you. It needs to reflect who you are. So just keep that in mind.
That is what's most important through this whole process, is that you're staying authentic to who you are and presenting your most authentic self, so that match can really be made between you and the right fit college.
Exactly.
So really kind of the way that ESM likes to do it is if a student is paired with an ESM college counselor, typically we'll have the student and the counselor work through these brainstorming sessions, do fill in the blanks, short answers. If the student isn't working with an ESM counselor and just is only doing essay coaching, that's fine too. They'll just do this first step with the essay coach. But either way, this is the very first step and kind of going through these brainstorming exercises. I always like to tell my students, like, please just act as if I'm not even here while we're doing it and try and show your most vulnerable self. There's absolutely no judgment from me whatsoever. And you're only robbing yourself if you're going to be self-conscious through it. So helping students to just get pen to paper and get some thoughts out on who they are. We really like to kind of go through this brainstorming session and then really hand it over to our essay coaches and make it a team approach. And what's really wonderful about working with essay coaches is that then the essay coach almost acts as a third party, almost like an admission officer, because they might not have as much background on you as, say, your college counselor does. But then the essay coach comes in and they're just sort of this neutral party that's helping you to work through it. And ultimately helping you to make it read the way that an admission officer would want to receive the personal statement.
Yeah, that is actually a great point. Just that whole dynamic of how we set it up at ESM works very well with students because case in point, you have like a student has an extremely good relationship with the counselor and it could read completely different, right? They could read between the lines of what a student is trying to say. Then they have like the essay coach read it and be like, who doesn't know the student? It's like, it kind of reads a completely different way to me as an outside party. And then you guys can actually come together and make it read the way it's intended. And I think it is helps students immensely, especially when they don't have that support system and they have to do it alone. It's very stressful. With ESM, we try to make it as stress-free as possible, adhere to deadlines and make sure that you shine, always having the students, best interest at heart. So that is just my 2 cents on that.
No, and great 2 cents. I mean, I think this is a process where you want involvement, but we also want you to be cautious about how many people you involve because there can be too many cooks in the kitchen. And when there are too many cooks in the kitchen, the student's voice gets lost.
Exactly.
So I think if the student is willing to really kind of open up, be vulnerable with their essay coach, their college coach, and embrace the process with kind of as a team of 3, the essay will turn out really, really well. So in terms of kind of brainstorming, this is another exercise that we use with our students. And I think it's a very simple equation that ESM uses, and it always produces really top quality work. You have to think like, what are my top few qualities that I want to convey to a college? And then how can I communicate that via a story or something that really highlights who I am as a person. And I think one of my all-time favorite essays that I've read, we provide an essay guide to our students and families. And this essay is actually in that essay guide. And it's a student who talks about, I guess the quality that he's trying to convey is his adaptability. And he talks about how he is, friends with a bunch of jocks, but he might not really feel like he fully aligns with those particular individuals. And instead he kind of has this secret hobby, if you will, and he loves playing Pokemon Go. And so he ends up going to this Pokemon Go meetup, and he ends up playing against this older woman and strikes up this friendship and starts learning about her and her grandkids, and just the essay talks about this kind of organic friendship that comes about and how he sort of evolves into who he truly feels that he is. And he becomes proud of who he is and proud of this outside hobby that he was always too nervous to kind of share with his high school group. And I loved how it's such a kind of mundane thing that he's talking about, but it really highlights who he is and his adaptability and that he can mesh with people of all ages. And from an admission lens, what I got from that essay is, as I'm reading this, I'm thinking, wow, this is a student that is adaptable and will shine on our college campus, because they're going to be thrown into situations with new roommates, new classmates, and they're going to be somebody that can get along with a whole different variety of people. And that's a really powerful thing that you're communicating to a school. Because you have to remember that the admission officer's job is to read your essay and try and figure out your place within their greater community, and how you would contribute to their college community. And I just loved how this particular essay really highlights that for that student. So just remember, you can make an ordinary event into an extraordinary essay, really just as long as it brings out those qualities that you want to convey.
Right. It's like, you think of Pokemon Go, you don't equate that with that story, right? But, it's how, like I said, how you make those qualities shine. And it could be about anything.
Definitely.
All right. So how do you stand out from the crowd? Like a boss, according to this. But how can you differentiate yourself from other students? Well, we will highlight that now. We've said this multiple times, but you need to write in your own voice, your own style. The classic, okay, don't throw stones. The show don't tell. I know you guys are sick of hearing that, but we definitely mean it. Like I said, you don't want to write as if you're writing an English paper. That's not going to read well to an admissions officer. You don't want them falling asleep during your essay. It's not you. All right. You want them to actually be engaged in the process, be engaged in your story. So having a positive tone, using active voice, those are all essential in terms of making sure those qualities you're trying to highlight, that they shine to the best of your ability. And just to kind of piggyback off something Carrie mentioned before about having too many cooks in the kitchen, right? That's why I said, like, in terms of like friends and family, you want them to highlight, help you highlight the qualities that you can actually write in your personal statement. That's fine. But once you get into the actual process, your counselor, your essay coach, and you, that should be really it. Because then you start bringing in other people and you lose your own voice, because everyone has a different interpretation of what you should be saying, what you should be writing about, right? And this is your time to shine. This is time to sell yourself. It's time to be your authentic self. So don't be afraid to say no to those people. I know we've run into some interesting scenarios over the years where it's been difficult for students because you want to impress the people that care about you the most, but they already know you. That admissions officer does not know you. And you don't want them, you don't want to write an essay to appease your best friend or a family member, and it's not your authentic self, and then have the admissions officer be like, I don't know who I'm, like, what is this? Who is this person? Like I'm getting hit from different avenues, and I'm not sure, it's not really, centered to one person, one voice. So you want to avoid that at all costs. Show, don't tell, get as detailed as possible. And like I said, use language that demonstrates your enthusiasm in whatever story that you're actually talking about. Engage the reader. Don't be afraid to toot your own horn in certain aspects, but just make sure it's you. And that's how you make the strongest personal statement.
Absolutely. I think it feels really awkward for students to toot their own horn. You're taught not to do that. But if you don't do it during the application process, who will? And so now is the time to really embrace the humble brag, if you will, and figure out a way to convey yourself in the best possible light, and not be afraid to do that. So with every process, of course, there's pitfalls, right? And we want to help guide you away from those pitfalls. There's kind of some classics that students tend to, that I've seen on the admissions end, that I would caution you to avoid. I think writing about, as heartbreaking as this might sound, writing about sports can come off as really cliche. I think you can certainly talk about sports, especially if it's a big part of your extracurricular life and you've spent years doing it. You can certainly talk about it, but I caution you to really work with your essay coach on how to make a solid essay out of a sports topic. Because you have to remember that these admission officers are reading lots and lots of applications. And if you and 50% of the applicant pool is writing about sports, your voice gets kind of lost, right? So thinking of a unique topic, and if you do write about sports, that's totally okay, but thinking about how you're conveying it in a unique way and what it says about you. I like to remind students that you want to avoid like having that so what moment. Like you've written your essay, the admission officers read it, and then they sit there and they think, so what? So why did you just tell me that? So taking a step back and thinking about how your essay fits within the greater context of your application and what you're conveying through your activities list. And also, the courses that you're taking, it's like you have to really think about that big picture. And that's where the counselors can really come in and help you land on a topic that adds up with the rest of the components of your application. We also really don't want you to write an essay about someone else. As much as you adore your grandma and your grandma has, bakes cherry pie with you every Sunday for your entire childhood, and that's a huge part of your life, that's fantastic. And I think that we can find a way to write about that. But I don't want an essay where I learn more about your grandma than I learn more about you. So definitely need to be careful on that. I would say it's also important to, avoid topics that are not genuine to you, of course. If you are going to write about something that's been difficult in your life, we can work through that with you, but we certainly want to always make sure that we're helping you to show resiliency and growth. And I think there's a very tactful way that can be done, and we'll certainly help you through that. You just have to remember, admission officers have a really limited time to read your application, so you've got to make your words count. And we want to help you through that.
Yeah, that 650 words sneaks up on you very quickly.
It sure does.
So each word needs to have intent. But okay, that's what the essay coaches are for, and that's what we'll help you with. That's actually my specialty, taking those 1,200 word, essays and cutting them down, so if you guys need help, not to, toot my own horn or, sell myself, but, hey, see, I just did it. You can do that in your personal statement. You can do it.
If Chris can do it, you can do it.
Yes.
He's good at taking out that red pen, shedding the words. So I think, it's there's a lot of things to be mindful of. Too many cooks in the kitchen. We've hit on that one before. It can feel like a really overwhelming process, but we really don't want it to be that way. And truly, if you follow our formula, what qualities do you want to come out, and how can we convey that through an anecdote? It's a pretty foolproof formula, if you ask me.
Exactly. And if you, just to even piggyback off that, if this is actually, all this information to you right now is actually overwhelming you, that's why we encourage you to start early.
Yeah.
Right. That's why we're encouraging you to start the brainstorming and outlining process early as possible. Because imagine all this information coming to you right now in the fall. And we're highlighting the personal statement right now. You have supplemental essays to do too.
Yep.
If you're applying to UCs, they got 4 different essays as well. So you want to make sure that the personal statement is supposed to be the featured movie. All right. So make sure it shines to the best of your ability, and you don't want to rush through it and not give it the time that it deserves. So that's why we're having this webinar now, early in the process, even before the school year ends.
Yeah. And now I think is the absolute perfect time to involve parents, because your parents, they know their students best, and really getting a sense from your parents what qualities they think are your best, and then working backwards from that. So don't be afraid to ask mom and dad for their harsh opinion of you, and then using that as through the brainstorming exercises as well. But there's certainly the personal statement, and then there are a lot of other pieces of writing as well, which is why we help students to really stay organized. And this is an example of one of our Google Docs that we will use with our students.
Yes, this, you can actually click on that link. See if it works. Perfect. Okay, so let me tell you, this was designed by our team, and between the collaboration of counselors and our essay coaches, and this helps immensely. Not only the student, but the counselors, essay coach. It helps everyone get on the same page. So as you can see, sample student, we have right at the top your whole college list, what the application type is going to be. This is obviously past one, so everything's completed already, but we have all the deadlines there. And then of course, that far right box, the status is so important, right? You can open the document right away and see what's completed, what's in progress, or what hasn't even been started yet. And then of course, like what each school actually requires. But it is, just having everything in one document just keeps things, streamlined and efficient as possible. You can obviously, in the past, when we were, still starting out and doing it for the first time, we had students making separate docs for each college, right? And it was, sometimes it's in their drive, sometimes it's not, and sometimes it's not in the shared folder. This one is in one place that everyone has access to, and it just makes it stress-free for everyone. And if you would notice, if you look on the left, where we have, each college based on your list, at the very top of that list is what? It's the personal statement. And we put it at the top because it is the most important thing. It's what you will be working on for the longest time. And like I said, it's the highlight of your piece. So you're going to go through multiple drafts. If I was to click on that, if this was like said student I'm working with in progress, last edit was made, blah, blah, blah. If you clicked on that history over months and months of time, so many changes, so many drafts that have been reworked on, you might actually start a personal statement, get through it and be like, you know what? I wasn't as passionate about this as I thought. I need to start over. Imagine doing that in the fall. You're not going to have time. So if you start early in the process and work with, your counselor and essay coaches, you can make sure you have enough time to actually not only get the topic that you're passionate about, but make it shine as much as possible. And then of course that helps you in terms of getting all those supplemental essays done as well, because that personal statement's not lingering over your head. And in some respects, you can use it for other supplements as well that aren't on the Common App. So, this is, this document is so beautiful. I'm not gonna lie.
It really is. Nothing makes me happier than an organized essay doc. It's just brings peace to the world. The other really wonderful part about having everything in one doc is a lot of colleges, for their supplemental questions, ask similar questions. So of course you want to tailor your response specific to the college when the question asks for it. But in some cases, there'll be a question like this: briefly elaborate on one of your extracurricular activities or work experiences. You write that for Vanderbilt, another college may have a very similar question and you can repurpose. We are big fans of reuse and recycle throughout the college application and essay process, because it's a lot of work. Sometimes it'll just be a matter of trimming down on word count, because one college will want to hear 200 to 400 words on it, and another may only want to hear about it in 150 words. So you can kind of have version 1 and version 2. Another thing I want to mention about this essay doc is we always do everything in suggesting mode. So we never want the student to lose their authentic voice whatsoever. And at the end of the day, it is the student's essay. So the essay coach is going into this doc, helping with grammar, of course, and then trying to get the student to, elicit their own words as much as they possibly can via suggestion mode. So we're not writing things for the student in any way, shape, or form. It's more like, hey, how could you elaborate here? And then helping the student to figure that out. But really cannot sing the praises of this document anymore. Might be my favorite Google document that exists.
Definitely. And just to reiterate once again, this is your personal statement. This is your college application. This is your time to shine. The essay coach and the counselor are there essentially in a supporting role. You're the main attraction, right? So we do everything in suggestion mode. We've had students who are like, no, to me, that's what I like. It reads how I wanted to attend it, right? So it's a team collaborative effort. Make a suggestion doesn't mean you have to always listen to it, right? If it's not who you are, we're showing you how it reads to us, as a third party essentially, and putting in our expertise based on, our experience and what we've seen other essays and how they've shined. But at the end of the day, this is about you and making sure your voice shines, and we're not going to take that away from the student, regardless of the circumstance.
Absolutely. Okay, well, I think it's clear we really love the essay doc. So last but not least, some takeaway tips for everyone. I hope it's clear that this is a process that takes time. And we don't want you to feel like you need to have a finished product next week. We just want you to start wrapping your head around finding that authentic voice, being comfortable with writing in the first person, and getting yourself organized. And I would say, if within the next month, you could start your folder where you have an essay doc and you're starting the brainstorming process. You're going to be in really good shape. I think students often underestimate how crazy fall can be, because you're still doing all your classes and your extracurriculars, plus you're layering on applying to college. So the more that you can plan ahead, the better off you'll be. So start early. Really use that inside out mentality, where it's like really dig into what those qualities are about yourself that you want shared with others. And that authentic product will follow. Of course, there are lots of ways to write the personal statement, but really the ones that balance out the anecdote and the analysis are the ones that shine through. And last but not least, and probably most importantly, is ask for help. That is why you're working with ESM. We are here to guide you through this process and help you to get a quality piece of writing down.
Exactly. And Marina, thank you for your question in the Q&A chat. We're actually going to be opening things up to questions now. But you work with an essay coach and a counselor, we will create that Google Doc for you. Make it as easy and stress-free as possible. And as you can see, it's such a beautiful template, put a lot of work into it. We'll make sure you don't have to make it yourself.
Absolutely. And what we typically do is we have our students, just for timeline purposes, if you're already connected with a college counselor at ESM, that writing process will begin, and the essay docs will start to be created on behalf of your students within about the next month. We'll really start to launch that process. So stay tuned for further details if you're already connected with an ESM counselor. And if you're not, let us know how we can help. And we would be more than happy to help guide your students and you through this process.
Yes, absolutely. So once again, the floor is open. Are there any other questions that anyone would like answered?
Feel free to put them in the chat. You can answer. You can also always reach out to Chris or myself via email, and we're happy to answer anything. You can find
Yes.
our mentor biographies on the website as well as our emails.
Yes, and I'll even put my email in the chat box if there's a question that you have later on.
Likewise.
Just so that you have it.
Great. Well, I think we will wrap it up and just say thank you so much for attending, and I hope you learned something new. And don't be a stranger. We look forward to hearing from you.
Yes, thank you all. And that is the end of CJ Squared.
Take care.
Take care, everyone.